The galaxy was a tapestry of light and sound, woven together by the Grand Concord. On the great station that served as its capital, species of every imaginable shape moved through halls that shimmered with gentle energy. It was a place of peace, maintained by technologies so advanced they seemed like magic. Ships traveled through subspace, minds communicated through thought alone, and energy was drawn from the fabric of space itself. It was a delicate, beautiful system. Una watched the main display, her feathers, the color of twilight, lying flat against her neck. As an Elasian, she was used to grace and subtlety. Her people were advisors, communicators, their minds lightly touching the psychic streams that connected the Concord. Now those streams were silent. Beside her stood Min, a human from Earth. He was young, with a calm face that hid a sharp mind. His job was to monitor the old physical communication bands, a duty most considered pointless. Until today. It is confirmed. A deep voice boomed through the chamber. It was Ambassador Kale, a being of solid light and resonating sound. The Kelidar Empire has fallen silent. The null wave has consumed their sector. A cold silence filled the room. The Kelidar were the strongest. Their ships were mountains of living crystal. Their warriors could shatter asteroids with a thought. They were the first, the oldest, the unbreakable wall. If they were gone, what hope did the rest have? The disturbance had begun weeks ago. A pulse from the galactic core, a wave of strange energy that did not destroy, but unmade. Where it passed, advanced technology failed. FTL drives became inert blocks. Energy weapons fizzled. Worst of all, for many species, it silenced the inner voice. The psionic connections that were as natural as breathing were cut, leaving a deafening silence in the mind. The wave was spreading, and no one knew how to stop it. The Concord fleet is still 3 cycles from the null zone edge, Una said, her voice melodic but strained. Their drives are failing as they approach the interference field. To go further is to become trapped. Then we must accept the inevitable, said another ambassador, a creature of swirling gas. We must retreat and mourn the Kelidar. Min's fingers moved silently over his console. While the others debated with light and thought, his station was different. It was simple, physical. Wires, circuits, and a speaker. It was a relic, a backup system that used sound waves and electricity. He was listening. The grand psychic channels were empty static. But on the lowest, oldest physical frequency band, a ghost of a signal was repeating. Ambassador, Min said, his voice cutting through the chamber's despair. I am receiving a repeating signal on the matter band. It is from the Kelidar homeworld. It is their final broadcast. All eyes turned to him. Put it through, Una ordered. A sound filled the room. It was not a thought, not a clean data stream. It was a raw, desperate audio scream, translated roughly by Min's machines. It was the sound of a proud civilization breaking. Crystalline shrieks of pain, the roar of dying planetary shields, and beneath it all, a voice, repeating the same phrase in the old common tongue. All is falling. The dark eats the light. The silence eats the song. We call for aid. We call for any aid. By the old codes we call. Help us, anyone, help. The signal ended with a final, awful sound of tearing reality. Then nothing. The chamber was utterly still. The Kelidar, who had protected the galaxy for eons, were begging. The shame and horror of it was a physical weight. Kale, the ambassador of light, pulsed with a solemn glow. We must answer. It is the law. We must broadcast their call. But to who? Una asked, her wings trembling slightly. Our fleets cannot reach them in time. No one can travel through the null field. It does not matter, Kale said, his light dimming. We must send the signal out on all bands, across all channels, physical and psychic. It is our duty. Perhaps some lost listener will hear. It is a formality, a final gesture of honor. The order was given. From the great station, a powerful burst of information was sent screaming into the void. It contained the Kaladar's final cry, their coordinates, and the details of the null wave. It was sent via psychic pulse for those who could still hear it. It was sent via Takin beam for those with advanced tech. And because the order said, all channels, Min was instructed to broadcast it on the oldest, slowest physical radio bands as well. Waves of simple electromagnetic energy, traveling at the speed of light, a crawl compared to modern methods. Min set the broadcast to repeat. He watched the ancient machinery hum, a green light blinking with each pulse. He felt a deep sadness. It was like throwing a paper message in a bottle into a hurricane. A gesture of pointless hope. Days passed. The null wave's edge crept closer. Reports filtered in of colonies going dark. The mood on the station was one of quiet dread. The great Concord was powerless. Their beautiful, intricate technology was useless against this kind of silence. Min stayed at his post. He found a strange comfort in the physicality of his machines. They had no psionic components. They were just metal and silicon. They would work until they melted. He listened to the hiss of empty space on his speaker. Yuna approached him, her grace subdued. You should rest, Min. There is nothing more to hear. I know, he said, but it is my job to listen. He was about to power down the receiver when he heard it. Not a hiss, but a ping. A single sharp tone. Then another. His screen, which usually showed random noise, displayed a spike. A signal. A real one. Yuna, he whispered. She turned, her keen eyes narrowing. What is it? I'm getting something. A return signal. On the same physical band. His heart hammered against his ribs. His hands flew over the controls, filtering out static. The signal was weak, but it was structured. It was not a voice. It was not a psychic impression. It was a string of pure data, a mathematical sequence. What does it say? Yuna asked, leaning close. It's numbers, coordinates, a set of spatial coordinates. And a timestamp. Min's blood ran cold as he cross-referenced the numbers with the galactic map. The point of origin was not a Concord world. It was not a known ally. It was a star system in a spiral arm, marked on the oldest charts with a red flag. He pulled up the file. The designation was simple, stark, and carried the weight of ancient history. System, Sol, Planet 3, designation. Terra, Earth. Status, quarantined, pre-warp civilization. Observation protocol enacted. No contact permitted. The timestamp attached to the signal was a countdown. It marked a precise moment, just 10 standard hours from now. It's an answer, Min said, his voice full of disbelief. They heard the call. Yuna stared at the screen, at the dreaded quarantined label, next to a world known only as a curiosity, a backwater. A world of primitive humans who had not yet mastered starflight. A world that, according to all logic, should not have heard the broadcast for centuries, and could not possibly answer it in hours. What in the name of the silent stars, Yuna breathed, could possibly be coming from there? The two of them sat in the dim light of the console, the green blink of the incoming signal the only movement. The galaxy had called for aid as a final, hopeless act of honor. And from the darkest, most forgotten corner of the map, something had just said, "We are coming." The formality had just become a terrifying reality. The edge of the null zone was a place of dead ships and dying hope. The combined remnants of the Grand Concord fleet hung in the dark like glittering, broken toys. Their smooth hulls were dark. Their elegant, glowing engine cores were cold and silent. The only light came from emergency battery lamps, casting long, desperate shadows. The only sound was the hum of life support, struggling to keep the crews alive. The psychic silence was the worst. For species who lived with a constant song of thought in their minds, the quiet was a screaming emptiness. Admiral Tay floated near the main viewport of the command ship, a vessel that now felt like a metal tomb. He was a human, one of the Concord-born, his biology lightly enhanced, his mind accustomed to the soft background hum of the network. Its absence gave him a headache that pulsed behind his eyes. He was a practical man, a veteran of border disputes, but this was not a war. It was an erasure. Next to him stood G. She was Kelidar, or what remained of one. Her form was crystalline, but the inner light that usually pulsed within her body was dim, reduced to a faint amber glow at her core. Her people communicated through resonant thought, a beautiful, complex symphony. Now she had to use a mechanical translator box that hung from her neck, turning her words into harsh, flat sounds. "They are gone," the box said for her. The voice devoid of the emotion, her crystal form subtly trembled with. "My entire world, the song, has ended." "There is nothing we can do, G," Tay said, his own voice heavy. "Our technology is dead. Our weapons are useless. We can only watch and bear witness." A young officer, a Tulian with feathery sensors instead of hair, turned from a dead sensor panel. "Admiral, long-range passive optics are still functional. We have visual on the Kelidar anchor point." The main screen flickered to life, powered by simple chemical batteries. It showed a terrible sight. Where the proud Kelidar homeworld had been, there now swirled a vortex of absolute black, shot through with threads of sickly purple energy. It was not a natural phenomenon. It felt like a wound in space itself. Around it, the shattered remains of crystalline battle stations and world ships floated, dark and dead. "Nothing could survive that," Tay whispered. The signal was sent, G's translator intoned. The formality was observed. But no aid can come. No ship can travel where thought and energy die. The mood on the bridge was one of final, quiet surrender. They had come to the edge of the abyss to pay their respects, to be the last ones to see the galaxy's greatest light go out. They were mourners at a funeral. Then the proximity alert chimed, a simple, loud bell sound from an analog backup system. Everyone jumped. "Something is entering local space," the Tulian officer said, his feather sensors standing straight up, at the exact coordinates from the human signal. The Sol 3 coordinates. Tay rushed to the optical station. "Magnify." The screen focused on a point of empty space. Then the space began to tear. It was not the clean, circular opening of a Concord warp gate. This was violent. It was like watching fabric being ripped apart by invisible, giant hands. Lightning made of raw, chaotic energy crackled around the edges. A sound, a deep, sub-audible groan, vibrated through the hull of the ship. "What is that?" Someone gasped from the tier. A shape forced its way into reality. It did not glide. It lumbered. It was enormous, a jagged mountain of metal. Its surface was not smooth or glowing. It was covered in thick gray armor plates, bolted and welded together. Protruding from it were massive structures that could only be weapons-long barrels, missile pods, and strange, blocky projections. At its rear, 6 huge engine nozzles glowed with a fierce, orange-blue fire, not the clean blue of ion drives, but the violent combustion of contained nuclear infernos and crude plasma dot. It was the ugliest, most brutal-looking vessel any of them had ever seen. "Identify it." Tay barked. "Sensors are non-functional in the null field, Admiral," the officer replied. "Passive optics only. No energy signatures. No psychic resonance." It is inert, a dead rock. But its engines are firing. The ship completed its passage, and the ragged tier in space snapped shut behind it. It hung there, a silent, monstrous intruder against the backdrop of the dark vortex. On its scarred hull, in faded but legible print, were letters, Uns nu ji gay. A crackle came over the backup radio channel, the same simple frequency Min had used. A human voice, speaking in an archaic dialect of common, rough, and unenhanced. Unknown fleet, this is Captain Jun of the United Nations ship Mujige. We are responding to the distress call. Please acknowledge. Tay grabbed the microphone, his mind reeling. UN's Mujige, this is Admiral Tay of the Grand Concord Remnant. Your arrival is noted. You must retreat immediately. You have entered a null energy field. Your advanced systems will fail. You will be trapped. There was a burst of static, and a different voice, a woman's, came on. Admiral, this is Chief Engineer Me. We read you. Our systems are reporting no anomalous field effects. We are green across the board. What is your tactical situation? Tay stared at G, who stood frozen, her crystal body reflecting the monstrous image on the screen. No effects? That's impossible. The field neutralizes quantum state technology and psionic harmonics. How are you powered? Fission reactors, secondary fusion cores, and good old-fashioned diesel generators for backups. Me's voice came back, matter of fact. Our computers are solid-state, hardened. Our comms are radio and laser. Simple stuff. Now, about that tactical situation? The big, swirly black thing looks like the problem. G stepped forward, her translator clicking. You cannot fight it. It is a void weaver anchor. It consumes energy and thought. Your primitive projectiles will be useless. Primitive is a point of view. Captain Chun's voice returned, calm and firm. Our scans show your fleet is dead in the water. We are moving to intercept the anomaly. Stand clear. Before Tay could protest, the engines of the Mujige flared with a sun-bright intensity. It began to move, not with a graceful leap, but with a slow, ponderous, and utterly relentless acceleration. It turned its blunt nose toward the swirling vortex and began to plow forward, straight into the heart of the null zone. The Concord fleet watched, utterly helpless, utterly confused. This ship, this relic from a quarantined world, was ignoring the fundamental laws of their universe. It was a stone thrown into a world of light, and the light simply did nothing to it. On the bridge of the Mojige, Captain Jun watched the vortex grow. On his main screen, a simple, rugged flat-screen monitor. Around him, his crew worked at physical control panels with buttons and levers. The air hummed with the sound of machinery, the thrum of reactors, and the vibration of the engines. There was no psychic hum, because there had never been one. He turned to his engineer. Me, what's our status? Armor is at 100%. Reactors are at optimal. Railguns are charged. Kinetic penetrator is loaded and ready. She smiled, a fierce expression. They said it couldn't be done. Let's show them how we do things in the dark. Jun nodded. He looked at the terrifying beauty of the Void Weaver anchor, a thing that had killed gods. He saw it with human eyes, not as an invincible terror, but as a target. A physical object in space. All hands, he said, his voice echoing through the old ship's intercom. Brace for impact. We're going in. The Mujige was a world of noise. After the silent graveyard of the Concord fleet, the assault carrier was a shocking cacophony of sound. Deep within its armored heart, in a chamber called the War Room, Captain Jun faced his guests. Admiral Tay and the Kelidar scientist, G, had been brought over in a simple mechanical shuttle. They now stood on a metal grating floor, surrounded by walls covered in wires, blinking lights, and physical control panels. The air smelled of ozone, grease, and recycled air. G's crystal form seemed to flinch with every distant clang and thump. The roar of the engines was a constant vibration they felt in their bones. She held her translator box. Your vessel? It is a symphony of force. But it is a blunt instrument. You do not understand what you face. Jun nodded to a chair welded to the floor. Please sit. We understand enough. We scanned the anomaly from the edge. It gives off no heat. It emits no radiation we can use. But it has a shape. It has a location. That means it can be hit. Tay rubbed his temples, his headache worse in this noisy, chaotic environment. Captain Jun, your resilience is remarkable. But G is right. The Void Weavers are not physical beings as you know them. They exist in a layered subspace. That vortex is just their anchor, a place where their dimension touches ours. Your bullets will pass through it like light through glass. A woman with short, practical hair and smudges on her coveralls stepped forward. This was Chief Engineer Mi. She carried a large, flat tablet. On it was a simple line drawing. We're not planning to shoot ghosts. Admiral, Mi said, her voice cheerful against the gloom. She held up the tablet. Look, the drawing showed the swirling vortex. An arrow pointed to its center, labeled Anchor Point Subspace Interface. Another arrow, coming from a blocky ship labeled Mujige, showed a massive slug hitting not the vortex, but a specific point in space just beside it. Think of it like this, Mi explained, tapping the screen. The ghost lives in the attic. The anchor is the attic window. You're all trying to throw light beams through the window to scare the ghost. The ghost just eats the light. She pointed to the big slug. We're going to throw a rock. A really, really big rock. Not at the ghost. At the house around the window. Jun took over. Our analysis shows the anchor point is stabilized by a delicate balance of energies in real space. It's like a soap bubble. Beautiful, complex, but touch it with the wrong thing. He made a popping motion with his fingers. G's translator buzzed. A kinetic impact. You propose to shatter the local space-time geometry, holding the interface open. Exactly, Mi said, grinning. Collapse the front porch. The ghost might be fine, but it won't have a way into our living room anymore. Tay stared. The simplicity of it was insane. It was a child's solution to a god-level problem. The energy required. The precision. One miscalculation, and you could tear a hole in space itself. We've done the math, Jun said calmly. It's what we had time for on the way here. The Mujige is not just a carrier. It is the delivery system. Our main spinal weapon is a magnetic mass driver. We call it the hammer. It will fire a single projectile, a tungsten shell with a core of stabilized neutronium. We aim, we fire, we leave. Leave? G's light flickered. You assume you will survive the retaliation. The Void Weavers will not just watch. We're counting on it, Jun said. He walked to a larger screen, bringing up a tactical display. It was not a hologram, but a green-on-black schematic. The null field kills your technology because it's all based on similar principles. Quantum entanglement. Psionic resonance. It's a master key for a specific lock. He turned to them. Our locks are different. They are mechanical. Our guns fire solid slugs propelled by magnetic rails. Our point defense weapons are rapid-fire cannons that throw clouds of metal. Our armor is just thick. We are a puzzle they have not seen before. Mi leaned against a console. You built a beautiful mansion, but you used only one kind of wood. When the termites came, they ate the whole thing. We live in a log cabin. The termites don't like the tar. For the first time, a faint, pulsing glow of something like hope began to emanate from G's core. The logic was barbaric. It was crude. But it was also a new logic, one outside the failed equations of her people. Your vessel? It is the wrong key. It cannot fit their lock. So their lock does nothing. That's the idea, June said suddenly. A loud alarm blared a harsh, ringing bell. A voice came over the intercom. Captain. Multiple contacts emerging from the vortex. Unknown configurations. They're coming fast. On the screen, the view shifted. From the swirling blackness, sleek, shimmering shapes were peeling off. They looked like living shards of dark glass, moving in impossible, silent patterns. They left trails of fading light. They were Void Weaver attack craft. Tay felt a chill. Those are stalkers. They disintegrate matter at a molecular level. Your armor will mean nothing. Let's test that theory, John said, his voice dropping into a calm command tone. All hands, battle stations. Seal pressure doors. Power up railgun batteries 1 through 20. Point defense network to autofire. Helm, hold our course for the anchor point. Steady as she goes. The Mujige shuddered as new systems came online. A deeper, heavier vibration joined the engine roar. On the external cameras, they watched as the stalkers swung toward them, moving like angry wasps. Beams of chilling purple light lanced out from the lead craft, striking the Mujige's hull. Where the beams hit, the thick ceramic armor did not vaporize. It blackened and cracked, but it held. Alarms sounded for hull breaches, but they were minor. The beams were designed to unravel complex molecular bonds. The Mujige's armor was simple, layered, and non-conductive. It was, in essence, a very smart rock. The advanced disintegrator beams washed over it, doing damage, but not the instant. Catastrophic melting they inflicted on Concorde ships. Then, the Mujige spoke back. Along its flanks, dozens of turrets swiveled. They were not energy weapons. They were multi-barreled cannons. They erupted with fire, but there was no brilliant laser light. Instead, they spat continuous streams of solid slugs. A storm of metal filled the space between the ship and the stalkers. The Void Weaver craft were fast, but they were not armored. They relied on speed and their energy shields, which flickered weakly under the null field. The cloud of high-velocity metal was something their defenses were not designed for. Slugs punched through their crystalline hulls. One stalker shattered into 1,000,000 glittering pieces. Then another. It was not a graceful space battle. It was brutal, messy, and loud. The Mujige tanked hits that would have killed a Concorde cruiser, and replied with what sounded like a continuous, world-ending thunderstorm of gunfire. G watched the screen, her translator silent. She saw the last stalker break apart against a wall of bullets. The purple beams stopped. The Mujige, scarred and smoking in places, sailed on, unbroken. Its course never wavered. She turned her crystalline face to John. The faint hope in her core burned brighter. You are not fighting the ghost, her translator said, the flat tone unable to mask the awe beneath. You are breaking all its toys. And the ghost does not know what to do. John gave a single slow nod. The vortex loomed larger on the screen, filling the view. Now, he said, his voice quiet in the sudden silence after the guns stopped. We break its door. The silence after the guns stopped was brief and heavier than the noise had been. On the bridge of the Mujige, every breath felt loud. The swirling darkness of the Void Weaver anchor filled the main viewport, a storm of nothingness that ate the light from the stars. The ship was wounded. Alphanumeric damage reports scrolled down a side screen. Hull breaches on decks 5 and 7 sealed by emergency bulkheads. A fire in Reactor 2 contained. The smell of burnt wiring and ozone hung in the recycled air. Captain June stood at the center of it all, his hands resting on the cool metal of the command rail. His eyes were fixed on the vortex. Up close, it was not a simple swirl. It was a complex, layered thing, like looking into a fractured mirror that showed only emptiness. In its center, a point of perfect calm pulsed with a faint, sickly light. The anchor point, distance to optimal firing range? Chun's voice was calm, a rock in the tension. 1,000 kilometers and closing, the helmsman, a man named Sue, replied. His knuckles were white on the control yoke. They're not sending more of those small craft. Something else is happening. The vortex itself was moving. The tendrils of dark energy began to coil and gather, forming into larger, more solid shapes. 4 massive pillars of condensed void stuff pulled free from the maelstrom. They solidified into sleek, jagged forms void weaver capital ships. They were like the Stalkers, but 1,000 times larger. They did not glow. They absorbed light, making them look like cutouts of deeper space. Energy spike. Me called from her engineering station. Massive. Off the scale? But it's not an energy we recognize. It's like negative power. From the laid alien ship, a beam lanced out. It was not purple like the Stalker's weapons. It was a black beam, a line of absolute darkness. Where it passed, the very light from the distant stars seemed to be sucked into it. It struck the Mujij's forward armor. This time, the effect was not a simple burn. The advanced composite armor did not just crack. At the point of impact, it unraveled. The complex layers of ceramic and metal alloy simply ceased to hold together, flaking away into dust that was swallowed by the beam. An alarm shrieked a major hull breach. The deck plates shuddered. Forward armor section Alpha is gone. Me shouted, her fingers flying over her console. Sealing inner hull. That thing eats molecular bonds for breakfast. Evasive pattern Delta. Jun ordered. The Mujige was not agile. It turned like a tired whale, but Sue threw the ship into a slow, rolling turn. The next black beam grazed the side, shearing off sensor arrays and point defense turrets in a shower of silent debris. They're targeting our engines. Tay yelled from the observation area, gripping a handrail. Next to him, Ji watched, her crystalline body reflecting the chaos on the screens. Jun saw the tactic. They weren't trying to destroy the ship outright. They were trying to cripple it, to stop it from reaching firing position. Helm, keep us on course. Me, divert all power from non-essential systems to forward thrust. We need to get into range. But Captain, our armor won't hold against many more of those hits. Me protested. We don't need to hold long, Jun said, his eyes locked on the distance counter. We just need one shot. The Void Weaver ships closed in, silent and deadly. The Mujija's remaining railguns opened up, sending streams of heavy slugs into the void. The projectiles hit the dark ships, but the effects were muted. They punched holes, but the ships seemed to flow around the damage, the void stuff healing like dark water. A third black beam scored a direct hit on the portside engine cluster. 2 of the 6 massive nozzles went dark, their furious fires snuffed out. The ship lurched, yawing to one side. Sue fought the controls, his face slick with sweat. Engine 3 and 4 offline. Thrust down by 30%. Me reported, her voice strained. The anchor point was so close now. The pulsing heart of the vortex was a clear target. But the Mujige was bleeding speed, crippled. The lead Void Weaver ship moved to position itself directly between the human vessel and its goal. They're blocking the shot, Tay whispered, despair in his voice. On the bridge, Jun did not hesitate. Helm, new course. Take us straight through them? Sue looked back, his eyes wide. Sir, ram them. Use the ship as a battering ram. Clear the path. A stunned silence fell. Then Mi nodded, a fierce light in her eyes. Aye, Captain. Reinforcing forward structural integrity fields. What's left of them? The Mujige turned its battered nose, not away from the blocking ship, but directly toward it. The engines, even the damaged ones, flared with their last full power. The ship accelerated, a wounded bull charging. The Void Weaver ship fired again. The black beam tore into the Mujige's forward section, vaporizing armor and shredding decks. Internal explosions flashed deep within the hull. Lights flickered. But the momentum was unstoppable. The two ships collided. It was not an explosion of light. It was a terrible, grinding scream of metal in something that was not metal. The Mujige's reinforced prow, designed to punch through asteroids, slammed into the energy-diffuse form of the Void Weaver vessel. The alien ship did not shatter. It dissipated, its form scattering like smoke under a heavy wind, its structure unable to handle the sheer, blunt physical force. The Mujige plowed through the cloud of dissipating darkness, its own forward section a mangled wreck. Alarms blared everywhere, but the path was clear. Firing range. Sue screamed over the cacophony. Fire the hammer, now! Jun commanded. Deep in the spine of the wounded ship, massive capacitors discharged. A sequence of magnetic coils, each the size of a building, activated in a wave. At the bow, a blast door blew open, releasing the contained atmosphere of the launch tube into the void. The weapon fired. It did not make a sound in the vacuum. But inside the ship, everyone felt it, a deep, resonant thump that vibrated through every deck plate, every bone. On the screens, they saw it, a single massive dart of dull metal, longer than a city block, shot from the ruined front of the Mujige. It flew straight and true, not glowing, not trailing energy. It was just a piece of dead matter, moving at a terrifying fraction of the speed of light. It crossed the final distance in a heartbeat. It did not aim for the vortex itself. It aimed for the precise, calculated point in space beside it, the delicate bubble of reality that held the anchor open. The kinetic penetrator struck. There was no fiery blast. Instead, space itself seemed to stutter. The swirling vortex froze. Then, like glass under a hammer, a spiderweb of cracks appeared in reality around the impact point. The cracks shone with stolen light from a dozen dimensions. The pulsing heart of the anchor flared once, a brilliant, painful white. Then it collapsed. The vortex did not explode outward. It imploded, sucked into the point of rupture with a final, silent scream of twisted physics. The last Void Weaver ships, caught in the gravitational backwash, were pulled in and shredded into nothingness. In an instant, the swirling darkness was gone. Only ordinary star-filled space remained, clean and quiet. On the bridge of the Mujige, the only sounds were the crackle of electrical fires and the gasping breaths of the crew. The main screen showed a calm, empty field where a galactic terror had just died. June slowly unclenched his hands from the rail. His ship was broken, bleeding air and power. But it was floating. And the silence in his mind, the null field pressure he hadn't even felt, was gone. He looked at the screen, then at his crew. Cut main engines. Emergency power only. Begin damage assessment and rescue operations. In the observation area, G looked out at the clean stars. Her inner light, for the first time since the nightmare began, glowed a soft, steady blue. Her translator was off. She didn't need it. The song was not back, not yet. But the silence was just silence now. Not a hungry, living thing. Tay stood beside her, watching the crippled, ugly, magnificent human ship drift before the stars. He had just witnessed a god killed not by a greater god, but by a very determined, very hard rock. The galaxy had called for aid, and humanity had answered with a hammer. The Grand Concord Assembly Chamber was full again. Light pulsed in graceful patterns along the walls. The soft hum of psychic harmony whispered at the edge of thought, a comforting song that had returned to the galaxy. The representatives of 100 species were gathered, their forms glorious and strange. But the mood was not one of celebration. It was one of profound, unsettled shock. On the central platform, Captain John stood. He wore a simple, clean uniform, his arm in a sling from injuries taken during the Mugia's final push. Next to him stood Min, the communications officer who had first heard the signal, and Yuna, his Elasian superior. They were a small, plain island in a sea of galactic splendor. Ambassador Kale, a being of coalesced light, pulsed with a solemn rhythm. The records have been verified. The Void Weaver anchor has been destroyed. The null field has dissipated. The Keladar homeworld is gone, but the invasion is over. Captain Jun, the Concord owes you and your people a debt that cannot be measured. Jun gave a short, respectful nod. We answered a call, that is all. But how you answered? It, said another ambassador, a floating cluster of crystalline orbs. It raises questions, your technology. It is a relic. A dead-end path the rest of the galaxy abandoned millennia ago. It should not have worked. From the Keladar delegation, G stepped forward. Her crystalline form was still dim, her song silent, but she carried a new stillness. She used her translator. It worked because it was a dead end. The Void Weavers had a key for every lock in our mansion. The humans never built a door that fit that key. They used a different kind of wall. Admiral Tay, standing with the human Concord delegation, spoke up. We watched them fight. It was not elegant. It was not clean. It was loud, violent, and physical in a way we have forgotten. They did not disrupt energy. They broke things. A murmur went through the chamber. That was the heart of it. The humans had not outpowered the enemy. They had outsimplified them. It felt like cheating the universe. A representative from the technocratic core worlds gestured with delicate, multi-jointed limbs. This principle of redundancy, this hardened system philosophy you describe, it is a step backwards. It is the philosophy of fear, of expecting failure. Jun looked at the being, his face calm. It is the philosophy of the fall, he said, his voice carrying clearly. You built towers of light that reached the stars. Beautiful, but you built them on a single principle. When that principle was taken away, the towers fell. He paused, letting his words hang in the air. We come from a world of storms, of earthquakes, of long, dark winters. We learned to build shelters with a strong foundation, with a fireplace that used wood if the power failed. We are not afraid of the dark. We expect it. So we always have a lantern ready. The silence in the chamber was deep. It was the most unsettling thing many of them had ever heard. To expect failure was to admit weakness. Yet, this admitted weakness had just saved them all. Yuna spoke, her melodic voice thoughtful. The quarantine on Sol 3 was placed because your species was volatile, passionate, prone to conflict. We feared you would be a danger to the peaceful Concord. Min, standing beside her, allowed himself a small smile. You are right. We are dangerous. But perhaps the galaxy needed a little danger. The kind that breaks a siege, not starts one. The debate continued, swirling around concepts of progress, purity, and safety. Some feared the human way was a corruption, a viral idea that would lead to clumsy, ugly technology everywhere. Others saw it as a necessary immune system, a backup for when the main systems failed. Finally, Jun raised a hand. The chamber quieted. We did not come here to change you. We came to answer a call. We are going home. Our ship is damaged, but it will fly. We ask for nothing. She moved to stand beside him. Her translator voice was soft. You must ask for something, and you must be given something. It is balance. It is the old way. Jun considered. He looked at the faces of the galaxy, full of awe, fear, and confusion. He thought of the Mujige, a battered survivor from a forgotten age. Very well, he said. We will take knowledge. Not of your weapons or your drives. We ask for your medicine, for your art, for your music and your stories. The things that heal and that make life worth living in the light. He then gestured to me, who was standing by a data port. And in return, we offer you our engineering schematics. Not for weapons, for foundations, for backup generators, for walls that stand when the light goes out. A blueprint for an anchor. The offer hung in the air. It was not a demand. It was a trade. It was an idea. Ambassador Kale pulsed warmly. This is acceptable. A cultural and technological exchange. The Concord will provide all non-military medical and cultural data. The Sol-born humans will provide the principle of the anchor. It was done. The agreement was sealed not with a psychic bond, but with a simple physical data transfer. Later, Min and Yuna stood on an observation deck, looking at a new star chart. The ship representing Earth was no longer a red, quarantine dot. What will they call us now? Min wondered. The saviors? The barbarians? Yuna's feathers rustled softly. I think they will call you what you have always been. Something they forgot existed. She pointed to the chart. Look. Where the label quarantine had been, new glyphs were written. They translated into common as a simple, powerful phrase. Sol 3. Terra. Designation. Anchor point dot. It was not a classification of threat or of technology level. It was a statement of function. A place you could tie a rope to when the storm came. A thing that would hold. Across the galaxy, the story spread. Not of a mighty fleet, but of a single, ugly ship. Not of a brilliant energy weapon, but of a very large, very fast rock. They had called for aid, and what appeared had not been a brighter light. It had been a harder shadow. It had shaken the galaxy to its core, not by being more advanced, but by being immovably, unchangeably, and reliably simple. On the Mujige, as repair tugs from the Concord worked alongside human engineers, Captain June stood on his cracked command deck. The simple green screens were lit. The hum of the fission reactor was a steady, familiar song. He looked out at the stars, at the beautiful, fragile galaxy they had just propped up. They were going home, but they had left something behind. A new idea. A very old, very simple idea. Always have a plan for when the beautiful lights go out.